Hi, so I hope you guys were able to complete the challenge and the project code, but if you weren't able to do it, don't worry, I'm pretty sure all of us are still getting a hang of the Python programming language, and sometimes it's a little difficult to reproduce all of our knowledge at once. So this video is a solution video to the project intro that we just had in the last video. Now let's just get into it and create our very first project, which is the password generator in Python. So what I did here is that I created a new project called password generator, as you can see on the top left. Now, once I created this project, I obviously removed all the default code and I've pasted the steps that we saw in the presentation in the last one as a comment here so that we know what we're doing. So the first step is to create a bunch of variables. So the first variable we need to create is first name, which equals to an input, and we'll ask the user to kindly enter your first name. Then we'll go last name, which is again going to be the same input. So I'm just going to copy and paste it. And instead of first, we make this last name. Then I'm just going to copy this line, paste it again, change the variable name of the variable, which in this case is going to be DOP. And we're going to take these inputs as strings. So we're not going to typecast it in any way because at the end of the day, our result is going to be a string and we want to concatenate it. So if you take it as an int or a float, you're going to have to typecast it, which is just unnecessary at this point. So for this project, all you want to do is just take simple inputs in the forms of strings or that belong to the string data type. So our DOB variable is going to be kindly enter your DOB in the format dd slash mm, sorry, mm slash dd slash yyyy, because we need to tell the user what format we want the DOB in. So that's why we need to specify that. Otherwise, the user won't know how to do it by themselves. The next thing you want to do is create a variable called country, and also you want that to have an input. So I've just pasted that, and kindly enter your country's name. So we'll remove last name and we'll write country's name. And finally, we've got the zip code. So zip code equals input, kindly enter your zip code, and that's it. So now the user is going to enter all of these data points or all of this data, and that's going to be stored into their respective variables. And once that is done, we have to generate a password for them. So how do we do that? Let's create a new variable called password. So password, pretty simple, right? It's always good practice to name your variables in a simple way and in a very, very obvious way. So I could also call this variable password. I could call this generated password, so that I know what the variable is actually storing. In this case, I think we can just call it password. So let's just keep it short and simple and sweet and call it password. So the password is going to be equal to the last two characters of the first name. So we've got the first name variable and we want the last two characters, right? So we're going to slice, and that's why we use these squared brackets. And inside this, we want to select the last two characters. So if you remember and you recall from the slicing lesson, the last two characters would be -1 and -2. So that's why we'll write from -2 to the end, right? So in this case, whenever you do not specify an index after the colon, Python is basically going to take the first index, that's the starting index, in this case it's -2, and it's going to take it to the end of the string. So from -2 to the end. So let's say the string is name, right? So -2 for the string name would be m, and -2 colon for the string name would be me. All right, because that's the end of the string. So -2 colon. Then we add the first two characters of the last name. So last name, and that should be pretty simple, right? So last name, first two characters. So from 0 to 2, right? Because 0, 1 and 2, and 0 and 1 are the first two characters. So 0 to 2. Then we have the part, which again is the first two characters of the DOB string. So DOB 0 to 2. And then we have the country part. So in country, we have the first four characters of the country. So we write country and we write 0 to 4. And then finally we have the zip code. So we have zip code. And for the zip code, we have the last two digits. So again, this is going to be the same logic. So from -2 till the end, right? So these are the last two digits. And obviously a dollar sign at the end. So we write plus, and since this is a string, we need to put double quotes and a dollar sign. So once that's done, our password should be created. But before we let any user test it out, let's just test it out as programmers. So I'm just going to write print password. All right. So once this is done, we click on run here at the top. It asks me to enter my first name. So I write Yash, my last name, that's Randive, then my birth date. So that's 06/11/1998. Then I write my country. So my home country is India. Then my zip code should be something random that I'm going to type here. And then I press enter. And now you can see that it takes the last two characters of my first name right here. Yep, the first two characters of my last name right here. Then the part of the date. Then the first four characters, that's INDI, of my country, that's India. And finally, the last two characters of the zip code, and obviously attaches the dollar sign. And that gives me a very secure, pretty simple, actually not simple, but complicated password, but in a very, very simple way. So let's format our program such that it's made a little more user friendly, because the user doesn't know what is this random string. So what we do is we use the format function in this case, right? So let's create a string s equals your generated password is, and then we can put a colon and our curly braces because we'll be using the format function. So result equals s dot format, right? We use the format function, and then we just have one curly brace here. So in this case, in the place of that curly brace, we just want the value stored inside the variable password, and so we pass the variable name password inside this, and it simply puts this value right here, and then we print our result, which is in a variable. So we print the result, and you have your program ready. So let's do that again. We've got Yash, Sandive, then we've got MMDDYY, so that's 06/11/1998, India, and my zip code is something random. And yeah, there you go, right? So you now are able to tell your user that, look, your generated password is this, and you're not just showing a raw generated password, which makes your program more user-friendly, more informative, just the way your program should be. So that's about it, guys. That's the end of this section, and the end of our very first project where we've extensively used string slicing. What you can do is you can make your own password generation logic and create new passwords, create new rules for creating a password, and actually just post them in the comments for me to check out. And I just want to see how your brains work with respect to creating new rules on making more secure passwords with your programs. This will also help you sharpen your slicing skills, which will help you out later in the course when we talk about about lists and sets and dictionaries. So play around with it. I hope you had fun doing this project. And well, this is not the end of it. We go on to the next one. So just have fun, and I'll see you in the next one.